Cortez Hankton is setting the record for Ohio State receivers. Every touch should end in 6.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Jay Stevens. Today's episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we're driven by the details. Highlights make the reel, but the work behind them makes it count. Stay tuned for this week's Moving the Game Forward, the all-new Mazda CX-5. More to move every side of you. During today's show, we will discuss 2 Buckeyes that lost their black stripes over the weekend, as well as how the change in the receiving room helps Julian Sayin. But first, when Cortez Hankton was hired to replace Brian Hartline, a lot of people were wondering what he would bring to the table, how he would replace one of the best position coaches in the country. He has quickly made his name and put his mark on this receiving room early in spring ball, making sure that his emphasis for the year is very, very clear, which is to make sure the Buckeyes know that when they catch the ball, they're to catch and carry the ball, and they should expect to score every time they have it. Now, you may say, Jay, like that's expectation for everybody on offense. You get the ball, you're supposed to score. But then you see some guys play, they go down on first contact, they can't get around the defenders in the open field. Tacklers have their way with ball carriers. And so while it's an expectation, it also is something that isn't always a reality, especially with receivers, because some guys don't run through contact. Some guys go out of bounds to avoid getting touched. But Cortez Hankton is very open about what he wants in this group this year. It's not only to catch and carry the football, but to know that when you catch the ball, either on a 6-yard hitch or on a dig, you should be expected to take it to the house. And he knows it's not going to happen every time. But if you're working to be more explosive, if you're working to run through shoulder tackles, if you're working to do all the little details that make a 5-yard slant go for 80 yards, that is a mission and a mindset that will be emphasized not only all spring ball, but throughout the summer and the fall camps. So the Buckeyes receivers are a lot better this year. And that's the goal. You bring a guy in to replace Brian Hartline, he's going to want to make sure that he puts his foot down and he makes his mark early, because Hartline had been around since the Urban Meyer days. He was a former Buckeye player, had a long career in the NFL. He had a lot of accolades and a lot of things with his resume that made him a big coach and a guy that people could believe in. Well, Cortez Hankton's coming in trying to replace that. Yeah, he did big things at LSU, and he is a real expected position coach around the country. But Ohio State's a different animal. It's not like LSU. It's not like Alabama. It's not like USC. It's definitely not like Michigan. It's not like one of the schools around the country. Ohio State is different. NFL executives and coaches praised Ryan Day for how well run the pro day was for Ohio State a week ago, which is very huge because they go around at different schools all around the country and they see how pro days are ran and how the coaches and the strength staffs are doing various drills. And what we're finding out is Ohio State's a little bit different. Jason Witten last year, his son was going around on different recruiting visits. His son stopped at Ohio State. And his son said, and he talked to, I don't know who he talked to at Ohio State, but he made a comment about how well organized, how well run Ohio State is, and how the way that they do things is different than the other places around the country. Jason Witten's son is a high recruit. He's getting visits all like Oklahoma, you can name it. He's going around getting the visits and trying to figure out the best place for him to play the football. Well, Ryan Day does things a little bit different. Well, Cortez Hankton knew that when he came to Ohio State to take this job. And he said, well, how can I do something a little bit different? He watched the film. He saw what JJ did, saw what Brandon Inniss did, saw Carnell Tate, realized that the depth really wasn't there, and he tried to figure out in his mind, what can I do that's different? It's pretty easy. Emphasize yards after catch. Yards at the contact for a running back, yards at the catch for a receiver, but the mindset is the same. Yards after catch. You get the ball in your hand. If it's a running back, run through first contact. Don't let that guy take you down. If it's a receiver, you get that ball and you get positive yardage. 5 yards, 5 positive yards can turn to 10, can turn to 15, can turn to 40, and it's a trip to pay dirt. Jeremiah Smith needs this. He's entering what should be his final year at Ohio State. No one thinks that he's going to stay for his 4th year. Brandon Inniss also, who's in his final year at Ohio State. These 2 guys need someone to push them to get better. Brandon Inniss wants to be a first-round pick, and he's working right now and grinding to make that happen. I still have my thoughts to where I don't think it's going to happen, because I don't know if he can make those strong strides right now, so that he is so good this year that he is a first-round pick, and he would have to add some pretty returns into his game as well. When I don't think he's the best returner. That's been well documented on this show for multiple years. He would also have to be a guy that can play not just in the slot, but also on the outside. He would have to have an Njigba year, an Njigba in 2021. I don't believe that's what Inniss is going to have in his bag. However, I do see Inniss buying into Cortez Hankton's way of doing things, his ability to emphasize the right things, clearly deliver his message to every player, not just the older ones, the veterans, but also the young guys that just got on campus, and see what happens. There have been some clips going around of Chris Henry Jr. at practice, and it's very clear that he's a little bit different. He's 6'5", 195 currently, but he's not built like a normal kid who's a senior in high school. He is built like someone that's a college football player. He's strong. He runs great routes. He's beating guys like Jermaine Matthews Jr. and beating other corners that you wouldn't think he would be able to beat this early on in his Buckeye career. But he understands some of the minor details of route running that are big parts of why he can catch the ball deep. Short to intermediates, he's catching those balls too, which ties into something else that Cortez Hankton is preaching right now, that you need to be good to catch and carry at all three levels, first, second, and third. And so I'm assuming that first, second, and third is short, intermediate, and deep passes. But first, second, and third levels, that's something that has to happen. I remember Jeremiah Smith, was it his first catch of his career? I think it may have been his first catch or early on in his career. He took a slant like 50 plus yards to the house. I'm thinking, okay, that's great. So that needs to happen, not just with JJ, everybody. Dev McEwen is going to be a guy that's going to be kind of, I won't say forgotten, but kind of glossed over a little bit, because Kyle Parker followed Hankton from LSU. JJ is the best player in college football. Brandon Inniss is an Iron Buckeye. Chris Henry Jr. is the new kid on the block. Devin McEwen, a transfer from UTSA, he's kind of the speed guy that is going to drastically improve how versatile this unit can be. Think about it, a year ago, you had Carnell Tate, you had Jeremiah Smith, you had Brandon Inniss. The two are really good. They're elite. Inniss it's good, but there's a large gap. They weren't as versatile as they are this year. When you get a versatile group of players that's unselfish, that knows their roles and they're performing them at a high level, the next thing you know, if they buy into this mindset, which is the right mindset for the team and for this group, good things can definitely happen. Speaking of good things can definitely happen, this change in this philosophy emphasis for this group right now, the receivers, is going to improve Julian Sayin's game. How will it improve Sayin's game in 2026? We'll discuss that after the break. This is Locked on Buckeyes. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. This is moving the game forward by Mazda. For those who know the score, never tells the whole story. And this week's moving the game forward player, once again, is Amari Bynum. His freshman year was a lot of fun to watch. He found himself as a sixth man for the Buckeyes early in his career. He got thrown into the starting lineup, and as a power forward of 6'8", 240, he had the bounce, he had the explosion, he had the power. He also had the deep range to be a three-level guy to hit you in the paint, intermediate, in the mid-range, and also from downtown hitting his shot. He was his shots came timely. He didn't really take bad shots, but he was just a solid Buckeye basketball player this year. And hats off to Jake Diebler being able to not only get him to commit to Ohio State and sign, but to get this from this freshman, help him play this well during his freshman campaign in Columbus. There's more to these players than the highlights. The early mornings, late night runs, constantly showing up for their squad, on and off the court. The all-new Mazda CX-5 moves the way, with more space to connect, a bold new design, and more intuitive technology, so you can stay connected to the road in every position you play. The all-new Mazda CX-5, more to move every side of you. This episode is also brought to you by 5-Hour Energy. Welcome to the 5-Hour Energy Flavor Draft, with 18 different flavors to choose from, including new options like Confetti Craze, Fruity Rainbow, or Cotton Candy. There's something for everyone. The board is set, the flavors are ready, and I've got my number one pick for the 5-hour energy flavor draft. And as always, guys, this is never going to change. Cherry is always my number one pick. It's a bold cherry candy style flavor. It is sweet with a light tart edge, has a classic red fruit profile. It is bright with a punchy taste. Speaking of punch, and not so much cherry variety, but sometimes you can get a little fruity flavor with the grape as well. The grape is one that I've been sleeping on, but it's kind of one I'm going to keep in my back pocket that I don't want people to know about. But you and I talk every day, so you get in on the secret. Grape has a Concord grape flavor similar to grape juice or candy. It is soft with a rounded sweetness. It is smooth, has almost a syrup-like fruit profile, has a classic purple candy style finish. Cherry's number one. The sleeper pick is grape. What is yours? You can find your new favorite flavor of 5-hour energy shots available on 5hourenergy.com or Amazon. Thank you for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen of the day, and for making Locked On the number one sports podcast network. Get your first month of the Everyday Club for free when you use code MARCH. You'll unlock ad-free episodes and entry into our private listener group chat where I'm hanging out daily. Click the link in the show notes or go to lockedonbuckeyes.supercast.com to claim your free month. And as many of you can see right now in the video, the background is a little bit different than normal due to some medical things going on. We are not at home, but the show must go on. As the show must go on, Julian Sayin's game must go on and get better every single day. You saw the Julian Sayin with the mustache earlier this offseason. He cut it, and now he is looking, honestly, he said he gained 5 to 10 pounds. It's noticeable weight, and you can see the muscular gain and how he is a better player, more physically fit to play football now than he was at the end of his freshman campaign or first year starting at Ohio State. Well, when you think about receivers emphasizing catch and carrying the football, and the receivers coach is coming in emphasizing yak yardage and preaching, if you have a 6-yard hitch, you should be expected to take it to the house. If you have a dig, you should be expected to take it to the house. If he is emphasizing those things, have a direct connection to Julian Sayin, how he plays the football, and how this offense will flow in 2026. If I'm saying, this is what I want. I want somebody to come in, and not with a fresh mindset, but a renewed vision for this unit to where they can renew their vision. They can focus on something a little bit different than normal. And the next thing you know, they are the receivers that Ohio State has been looking for. And if you look at this unit, Ohio State realistically has 4 to 5 guys that can play this year. Jeremiah Smith, Brandon Inniss my brain was going slow. JJ, Inniss, Henry Jr., Kyle Parker, and Devin McEwen. The one thing about Henry Jr. that Cortez Hankton recently said over the weekend, I believe it was on Saturday, he said that you have to remember he's still a freshman. He's still new. He just got here. So it's not so much like he's super talented. He's definitely going to start. I still think he's going to start. But Hankton is saying, you haven't done anything yet. You just got here. So you can't be expected to do anything where it's just an expectation because of some recruiting rankings or because of some high school film. College is different. But while college is being different, he is also seeing Henry do college football receiver things at a young age. Remember, he's supposed to be a senior in high school here, early enrolled at Ohio State. And he is coming in and making plays against guys that have been Buckeyes for 3 or 4 years. That's a little bit that's not normal for a freshman to do, but he's doing it over and over and over because he's just built like that. That's the kind of player that he is. But when you have 5 receivers that can play, they can be more versatile than normal. Most of them can play in the slot. I don't think Chris Henry will play in the slot. He'll probably play outside. I don't think anybody wants to put a 6'5", 195 receiver at the slot, knowing how, even though the targeting rules in college prevent some of the heavy hits, there are still some hard hits that are laid out. And when you bring the lumber, that could be a recipe for disaster. But for saying, you want to make sure the guys you're throwing the ball to aren't just going to go down on first contact, that they aren't going to run out of bounds, that they aren't going to do the old what I saw growing up. Marvin Harrison get the ball, catch it over the middle, and immediately get down to save his body. But they're trying to get positive yardage. Now, let's not go crazy. There are times that when you catch a ball over the middle, you probably should go down to save your body, to make sure that whoever is around you isn't trying to take your head off. That is something that's a very smart tactic and a very smart thing to do. But Sayin knows this is the best way for the offense to move forward and for him to be a better receiver. If he is always worried about, well, if I throw this 5 yard pass on 1st and 10 and it only goes 5 yards because homie can't run through a shoulder tackle, then it kind of sets us back, slows us down, doesn't allow us to be as explosive as we need to be. But if he gets behind what Hankton is preaching, and Arthur Smith is also backing what the receivers coach is demanding of his players, then the next thing you know, the offense is going to another level that it really hasn't been at in a while. I don't believe Ryan Day's offense was stale. I don't believe Ryan Day's offense was the problem. I simply believe that sometimes you're not preaching the right things to the players, and it's leading to, not saying Day isn't, but Ryan Day literally had a first-time play caller. I don't think that was the right move last year, and we saw what the result was of that. Maybe that was something that took away from the receivers when you saw JJ and Tate get hurt. They didn't have anybody. Now, Quincy Porter was hurt, and so that's also something to think about. If he was healthy, you would have had maybe a 6'4 receiver, 200-pounder. They could do something, but Marlon Graham never really got developed. You go before him. Jaden Ballard never really got developed. Julian Fleming also. Like, these are three guys. I'm not saying they weren't developed. They were kind of the same thing. It was just all about them just doing the same things over and over. They never really got better. Fleming, the year before Fleming, so 2 seasons before Fleming left, trying to get this correct, he had a decent season. Like, he wasn't expected to go for 1,000 yards and 12 touchdowns. I think he had 400 or 500 yards, decent amount of receptions, decent amount of touchdowns. And so you're thinking, can he capitalize on that the next year? He didn't. I'm not saying it's all on Hartline. When you're playing double duty, sometimes it's very, very difficult to consistently hit the right button to know the pulse of the unit and the players because, well, you're trying to figure out and handle so many different details, so many different parts of your job that some things get left behind, which is why I think it's very smart that Ohio State this year has a defensive coordinator that's not coaching a position, has an offensive coordinator that is also not coaching a position, and also has a special teams coordinator that is not coaching a position. When you get those 3 coordinators, which has more of the NFL model, and there are some NFL coaches that have an OC that's your QB coach and has your DC that coach, like that stuff still happens. But when you get your coordinators, all 3 of them, to just focus on their units, special teams with Robbie Disher, defense with Matt Patricia, an offense with Arthur Smith, when you can get coordinators like them to focus on what they're asked to focus on, it's going to make Ohio State a whole lot better. And the offense more explosive, and the defense more faster, playing faster and freer, and especially seems crisper, and hopefully returning a punt and a kickoff return for a touchdown this year. That'd be fun. You got to be glad about what Ryan Day has done, and also for how Sayin's going to be able to utilize his bigger frame, his brain that is getting a whole lot sharper, and his ability to swing the ball all around the yard to help these receivers be the best they can be for the offense to be a whole lot more explosive. Speaking of being explosive, there was one receiver that recently was a transfer, and a guy on defense that was also a transfer. Well, the first 2 Buckeyes to lose their black stripes that happened during a practice towards the end of last week. We'll dive into both of those players after the break and the significance of these players losing their black stripes this year early in spring ball. This is Locked on Buckeyes. That's all coming after the break. This episode is brought to you by Robinhood. What if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not you against the house. It's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moments that matter. Robinhood prediction markets changes the game. It's people moving the action. So when momentum shifts, you can move with it. I always knew the game, but never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now I can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator. Play by play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood. Now available across the U.S. Download the Robinhood app now to begin. Futures and cleared swaps trading involve significant risk. It is not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives LLC, a registered futures merchant and swap firm. This episode is also brought to you by our friends at Supply House. You wouldn't show up on game day without a plan, and you wouldn't show up to a job without the right parts. That's why putting Supply House in your starting lineup is always the right call. Here are the stats: 300,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products, 500 tried and true brands, and 90% of the country is in the 1 to 2 day delivery zone. Need a last minute coupling, a compressor, a press tool? They've got it and they'll get it to you quickly. They are clutch. If you're a pro in the trades, you can join the MVP of rewards programs and become a trade master. Pros get exclusive member-only pricing, priority shipping, industry-leading customer service, and it's all absolutely free. Visit supplyhouse.com/trademaster to learn more about becoming a trade master. Use promo code SH5College for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com/trademaster, promo code SH5College. Supply House, real people, real service. Thank you all for tapping in Locked On Buckeyes and for making this show your first listen of the day. Once again, remember, Locked On Buckeyes, it's a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Not one Buckeye, but two lost their black stripes over the weekend to become the first two players to lose their black stripes during spring ball. And for those that are new to Buckeye football, that don't know the history and the importance of losing your black stripe, let's get that pretty quickly because this is a big deal. Urban Meyer started this tradition back when he was coaching the Buckeyes to where players had to lose their black stripes to prove that they had what it takes to be a Buckeye. And yes, you get your recruiting visits and you get your official visit, you sign on your national letter of intent. Like all those things are very pivotal to you being a Buckeye to get on campus. However, you got to go on the practice field. You got to get in the workout room. You have to lift the weights. You have to prove that you have it physically and mentally once you get to Ohio State to be a Buckeye. And the significance of this is pretty big because the Buckeyes, I think, have had 4 or 5 practices so far. My numbers are a little bit off. I believe it's up to 5 practices so far that they have had. And when you've had 4 or 5 practices, it's giving you a little bit of time to have the acclimation period. Oh, let's go to spring break. You come back to practice, and now the pads are on. You're hitting a little bit, moving around a little bit faster, getting a little physical. And it gives the coaches a great glimpse of what you are as a player, what your mindset is. And so you may think, and I kind of thought at times, that maybe Chris Henry would be the first guy to lose his black stripe at Ohio State. But no, there were 2 transfers that lost their black stripes over the weekend. The first one that comes to my mind, that's really one I'm thinking about right now, it's Earl Little Jr., the safety transfer, and the all-ACC safety that came from Duke. Had 2 years at Florida State. There's another one, Terry Moore that came from Duke. But Earl Little had a couple years at Alabama, then played a couple years at Florida State. He is someone that's expected to start. And when you're expected to start, there may be a sign that you don't go all out early on, or you see some of the guys on the team, you're thinking, I can play with them, but I just want to wait my turn and not go all out now. No, he has quickly turned heads. And as everyone's trying to figure out who's going to replace Caleb Downs on the defense and who's going to replace Lorenzo Styles on the defense, well, losing his black stripe now, it's not only a sign that he's going to be that guy, that he's going to replace one of those two, but he's a definite starter. He's turning heads, and he's a game changer. He has an opportunity to be a game changer this year for Ohio State, which is why Ohio State brought him in. He's not a finished product. He's not perfect. But you want to bring somebody in that can be a veteran, that can change things in that room, that can keep the standard high and make sure that he's going to be a big piece for the Buckeyes defense this year. So Earl Little Jr. is a guy that lost his black stripe. The other one is someone I'm becoming more excited about as he tweet on the tweet on Twitter said Zone 6 adds a fast and physical baller to the room. And Kyle Parker, to me, is the second guy on the list today that lost his black stripe. I saw a picture of him. This is, I think, the day before he lost his black stripe. I saw a picture of him on Twitter, and I saw that the weight room was his friend. You could see the noticeable physical muscle gain in his shoulders, in his arms. By the picture, now sleeves are rolled up. He's at practice. He's moving. Like, the physical part is going to help him get the pump in the arms. But I didn't see that when he was at LSU. I remember watching clips of him and watching some film on him when he transferred to Ohio State to get a better feel of what kind of player he is. I didn't see him being physically built like that when he was playing down there in the Bayou. And then when he comes to Ohio State, and Mick Mariotti has done a great job, phenomenal job with the strength and conditioning of the players and the staff, and everyone's on the same page. And for him to be at Ohio State from January until March, which is really when those workouts hit hard, and for him to put the weight on like that, hats off to everybody involved because they are getting it done. But Kyle Parker is kind of a guy that I'm looking at and saying he's competing with Inniss and Henry Jr. for the right to start. Ryan Day was open and had a phone call with Chris Henry when he committed to Ohio State a couple of days after the early signing day period opened. And Henry was on the Pat McAfee show and said that he was going to stick with his commitment to be a Buckeye. He had a conversation with Ryan Day, and Ryan Day said, "You're going to be catching the ball from Julian. I'm on the opposite side of Jeremiah." I'm not going to sit up here and say Ryan Day's statement to him isn't going to come to reality. I firmly believe Chris Henry is going to start. I think Inniss is the one that's up for grabs and could see himself not play as much or not start. It's not because I don't think Inniss is good. I think Kyle Parker might be maybe faster, maybe more physical, maybe more fit for this unit this year. Inniss is going to play. What Parker provides is a legitimate third option, fourth option, depending on where you fit, depending on your mindset on Inniss and where you are going to put him on the depth chart. I'm telling you, he can be a captain and not start. He can get the block or jersey and not start. If he doesn't start, it's not a knock on him and saying that he's garbage. It's just saying that they have gone out to the portal to get more players, to get more quality players that can play now. Speaking of playing now, I'm trying to figure out in my head who the next players will be to lose their black stripes. My first thought has always been Chris Henry. But Brock Boyd's turning heads, Legend Bass turning heads. There are guys at Ohio State, Sincere Johnson's turning heads. I mean, all these guys are players that are turning heads right now in Columbus. But my gut tells me if I have to go with the incoming freshman, I got to go Sincere Johnson or Chris Henry are the next two guys on my list that I believe can lose their black stripes, and Legend Bay. Those are the next three. If I have to go with a transfer, I can't look past James Smith. The fact that they allowed him to get behind the mic and talk to the media after a practice when you just got to Columbus, that speaks volumes about how they view him, his mindset, his maturity, and his ability to be a vocal leader for this team. And so pay attention to who talks after practice, who gets the ability to represent the team and be a vocal leader for the team, because that could be someone that, if they haven't already lost their black stripe, that could be somebody else that loses their black stripes for Ohio State. Thank you all for tapping in Locked On Buckeyes and for making this show your first listen of the day. If you never miss an episode, the Everyday Club is built for you. Get Locked On Buckeyes ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to lockedonbuckeyes.supercast.com to join the club. For those of you on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 national Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you make your second listen Locked On College Basketball. You can follow me on any social media platform at jstevens07. Send every email to jstevens317@gmail.com. This has been Locked On Buckeyes on a Monday. We'll see you next time.